Number 1. Sarah and Mike had always loved adventure. When they planned their weekend camping trip to Camp 9, they imagined peaceful nights under the stars, away from the chaos of city life. Camp 9 was remote, rarely visited, and surrounded by dense forest. It was perfect except for the rumors. Locals whispered about Camp 9's dark past. People who stayed overnight sometimes vanished without a trace. Others reported feeling watched or seeing strange figures lurking in the shadows. Sarah laughed these stories off, but Mike wasn't so sure. As they arrived late afternoon, the forest greeted them with an eerie silence. No birds sang, no breeze rustled the leaves. Even the usual forest sounds felt muted. They found a clearing to set up their tent, close enough to a small creek for water but far from any trails or other campsites. The sun slipped away quickly, and soon darkness swallowed the woods. They built a fire, the flames crackling and throwing jagged shadows on the trees. Sarah tried to lighten the mood with jokes about the ghost stories, but Mike's eyes kept scanning the treeline nervously. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed through the forest, like a branch snapping under heavy footsteps. Sarah froze. Mike shone his flashlight toward the noise. For a brief moment, the beam caught a tall figure standing motionless just beyond the tree line. Pale skin, ragged clothes, and eyes that glimmered unnaturally in the firelight. Before Sarah could scream, the figure vanished into the dark. They locked up the tent and tried to convince themselves it was just a lost hiker or a deer. But as the night deepened, the sounds around them grew stranger. A low rustling circled the camp, getting closer and then fading away repeatedly. Hours past midnight, Sarah awoke to a wet, ragged breath right outside their tent. She nudged Mike awake, but he was already tense, listening. The breathing stopped. Then slow, heavy footsteps began circling the tent, crunching dry leaves and twigs. Mike unzipped the tent carefully, flashlight ready. The beam caught the figure again, now just a few feet away. His face was hollow, almost skull-like, and a cruel smile stretched across his cracked lips. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered, voice hoarse and cold. Suddenly, the tent shook violently. Something slammed against it, scratching and clawing at the fabric. Sarah screamed, clutching Mike's arm as the noise grew louder. Then, just as quickly, it stopped. They sat frozen, hearts pounding, until dawn's first light. In the morning, the ground around their camp was marked with enormous footprints, far too large for any animal. The prints led deeper into the forest, disappearing at the edge of a dark thicket. Determined to leave, they packed quickly. But as dusk fell again, the fire mysteriously went out, plunging them into darkness. Whispers floated through the trees, just beyond the reach of their flashlight beams. Suddenly, Sarah felt a cold hand grip her ankle through the tense mesh. She screamed and kicked wildly. Mike swung his light outside, but no one was there. Then, a face appeared suddenly at the tent window, pale, twisted, eyes gleaming with madness. The man grinned, revealing broken, yellow teeth. They abandoned their supplies and ran into the black forest, branches whipping their faces and tearing at their clothes. Behind them, the man's laughter echoed, low and terrifying. Desperation pushed them deeper into the woods, but the forest seemed alive. Every path appeared to loop back, every shadow hiding something worse. After what felt like hours, they stumbled into an old, abandoned cabin. Inside, the walls were scrawled with strange symbols and lined with yellowed newspaper clippings about missing campers, each face marked out with a sharp tool. The door slammed shut behind them. In the stifling darkness, the man's voice whispered from nowhere, "You can't hide." Their flashlight flickered and died. A scream tore through the silence. Then nothing. Days later, rescuers found the cabin empty. Sarah and Mike were gone, vanished without a trace. All that remained was a message smeared on the cabin wall in fresh blood. "Next time, you won't run." Number 2. The roommate. When Jenna found the listing for the apartment, she felt a flicker of hope. It was affordable in a quiet part of town and, best of all, it came with a roommate. She needed the money, and sharing the rent was the only way she could afford a place so close to her new job. The pictures looked normal enough. A small living room, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen with cracked tiles, and a bathroom that smelled faintly of mildew. The landlord assured her the roommate was quiet and respectful. Jenna didn't realize how wrong that reassurance would be. The day she moved in, she met Alex. He was sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the wall. When he looked up, His eyes were cold and distant, like he was somewhere else entirely. His voice was low and hesitant when he said hello, almost like he wasn't used to speaking. Jenna tried to smile, but something about him made her stomach twist with unease. Still, she told herself to give it time. Maybe he was just shy. At first, things seemed normal enough. Alex kept to his room, rarely speaking. Jenna respected his space and tried to keep to herself as well. But soon, she started noticing odd things. Her belongings were subtly moved. A book she'd left on the coffee table would be on the floor the next morning. Her phone, always face up on the kitchen counter, was flipped face down. When she mentioned it to Alex, he didn't deny it, but his answer was vague, like he was annoyed at being questioned. "I wasn't trying to bother you," he said, but his eyes lingered on her longer than necessary, making her skin crawl. At night, the apartment grew impossibly quiet. Jenna, who was used to city noise and the hum of life, found the silence deafening. She'd lie in bed and listen, sometimes to nothing at all, but sometimes to faint noises. A soft rustling behind the walls, the creak of floorboards where no one should be walking. One night, she woke to the sound of footsteps pacing just outside her bedroom door. Heart hammering, she whispered Alex's name, but there was only silence in reply. Gathering her courage, she cracked the door open, but the hallway was empty, the dim light of the living room casting long, shifting shadows. She swore she saw a dark figure retreating into the kitchen, but when she flicked on the light, nothing was there. Days later, Jenna's unease intensified. She started hearing whispers in the dead hours, so faint she wasn't sure if they were real or her imagination. The whispers never formed words, just soft, breathy murmurs that seemed to come from the vents, the corners of the rooms, the shadows themselves. One evening, while cooking dinner, she caught a glimpse of movement out of the corner of her eye, a shadow darting past the kitchen doorway. She spun around, but no one was there. Her breath caught in her throat. She texted Alex, asking if he was home, but he didn't reply. Then, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "You're not alone." The lights flickered, and for a moment, the apartment felt suffocating, like something was pressing in on her from all sides. She wanted to leave, but the fear rooted her in place. That night, Jenna decided to confront Alex. She found him sitting in his dark room, eyes fixed on the wall, expression blank and unreadable. "Alex, what's going on? Are you messing with me?" she demanded. He didn't answer. Slowly, he turned his head toward her. His eyes were hollow, lifeless, and cold, like a mask hiding something terrible. Jenna's skin prickled with a deep, icy fear. She locked herself in her bedroom that night, but sleep was impossible. Hours after midnight, a slow, deliberate tapping began at her window. Each tap was measured and mocking. She dared not look. Then, the door handle rattled violently as if someone was trying to force it open. She whispered, "Alex? Stop." No response. The tapping grew louder, more urgent, like the thing outside was losing patience. Her phone died suddenly, plunging her into complete darkness. The temperature dropped sharply. Jenna felt a breath on the back of her neck, and a voice hissed from the shadows, "You can't hide." The bedroom door creaked open slowly, as if pushed by an unseen hand. Jenna screamed, but no sound came from her throat. She was frozen, paralyzed by terror. The next morning, the landlord came by, concerned after Jenna missed work. He found the apartment empty. Jenna was gone, vanished without a trace. Her room was left in chaos. Drawers pulled open, clothes scattered, and on the bathroom mirror, smeared in lipstick, was a chilling message. "He watches." Neighbors later reported seeing a pale figure lurking near the building late at night, disappearing whenever anyone approached. The landlord refused to rent the apartment again. To this day, no one knows what happened to Jenna. Some say Alex was never really there, or that the real horror was something far darker, hiding behind his hollow eyes, waiting for the next unsuspecting roommate to move in. Number 3. The Night Shift Stalker. Ethan had worked the graveyard shift at the CVS pharmacy for nearly 6 months. The late-night shifts were usually dull, filled with the hum of fluorescent lights, the occasional customer, and the steady beep of the register. But this particular night felt different from the moment he clocked in. The air inside the store was thick, almost suffocating, as if the very walls were holding their breath. Around 2 a.m., Ethan's eyes caught a figure outside the front glass doors. The man stood motionless in the dim glow of the parking lot lights, his face hidden beneath a dark hoodie that swallowed any detail. Ethan's gut twisted. The man wasn't moving, just watching. Not like a passerby, but like a predator sizing up his prey. Ethan locked the doors, his fingers trembling slightly, telling himself to stay calm. Maybe it was just someone seeking shelter from the cold. Minutes dragged by, but the figure remained. Then, without warning, the man slipped into the shadows near the side entrance, disappearing from view. Ethan's heartbeat thundered in his ears. He told himself to focus on restocking shelves, but the feeling of being watched crept over him like a cold shroud. Suddenly, a violent rattling shook the emergency exit door at the back of the store. Ethan spun around, flashlight raised, breath caught in his throat. Whoever it was, they were trying to get in. He grabbed his phone and called the store manager. No answer. The rattling stopped abruptly, leaving an eerie silence that was worse than the noise. Trying to steady himself, Ethan moved toward the back storage area to check. Each step echoed ominously through the quiet store. As he neared the door, faint footsteps whispered behind him. Slow, deliberate, and unrelenting. He froze and spun around, but only emptiness stared back. Then, from the corner of his eye, a shadow flickered behind a row of shelves. A cold dread froze him in place. The lights flickered, plunging the store into near darkness, save for the dim emergency exit sign glowing like a warning. Ethan's breath hitched as he heard a slow, ragged breath just behind him. His heart pounded so loud he was sure whoever or whatever was there could hear it. He whipped around, flashlight slicing through the darkness, but nothing moved. Then, a whisper, barely audible but unmistakable, brushed past his ear. "You can't leave." Panic surged through him. He sprinted toward the front doors, fumbling with the lock. The doors refused to budge. He pounded on the glass, shouting, but no one answered. Turning, Ethan searched desperately for another way out. The back door, the same one that had been rattled earlier, was his only chance. As he dashed toward it, the store's lights flickered again, and the shadows seemed to stretch and warp around him. Suddenly, a heavy hand clamped over his mouth, stifling his scream before it could escape. His body stiffened, terror paralyzing his limbs. The cold, unblinking eyes of the man from outside locked onto his with a twisted, cruel smile. The grip tightened, dragging him backward into the darkness. Ethan struggled, but the grip was unyielding. A nightmare made flesh. "Shouldn't have locked me out," the man hissed, voice like dry leaves scraping across concrete. Time blurred. Ethan's vision darkened as he was pulled deeper into the shadows, swallowed by the void. Hours later, the morning shift arrived to find the store's doors wide open and the interior eerily empty. No sign of Ethan, no sign of the man. The security footage offered nothing but flickering screens and empty aisles, as if the terror had never happened. Employees who worked the graveyard shift after that spoke in hushed tones of a presence lurking unseen, watching from the shadows, waiting for the next soul foolish enough to stand alone in the dark. And sometimes, in the dead silence, they swear they hear slow, deliberate footsteps just beyond the edge of sight.